Based on today's high interest rates and rising costs, you calculate that you never will.
I love how like his whole thing is just like insulting his base. You know, it's like you're a piece of shit. You wake up in the morning, you don't have a job. You start drinking. You live in your mom's basement. You're not even good at video games. Like you don't have a girlfriend. You've never had a girlfriend and you never will. You don't have money. You're like you don't wipe your own ass. Like what is this strategy? Yeah, it's the Jordan Peterson tactic. It's a wonderful day in the homiehood, a wonderful day for a homie. Won't you be my homie to Taro?
The first thing I'd say to people who joined these protests, these occupations, is first of all, they will always have a right to be heard, to express themselves, to protest peacefully things they disagree with. And they have been heard. They've expressed very clearly their views, their perspectives, and they're hurt. At the same time, however, we are a government that is grounded in science and data and expert advice, and we followed the advice of public health officers and medical professionals to keep Canadians safe during a pandemic. That include encouraging through every means we could people to get vaccinated. And that worked. We had a better pandemic than many of our peer countries, with fewer deaths, with lower levels of economic disruption, with greater social cohesion than many other places.
Best pandemic ever over here, for sure.
And we will continue to listen to all voices across this wonderfully diverse country that isn't just diverse geographically or culturally or in origins, but also in perspectives. But listening to each other goes in both directions. We hear their skepticism around science, but they need to also hear our belief in science. These are conversations that we need to have. Not to say, of course, that everyone who chose not to get vaccinated doesn't believe in science. Of course not. Individuals can make decisions for themselves, and we'll always respect that. But those individuals who deliberately chose to amplify falsehoods and put their fellow citizens at risk, those were things that a government needs to stand firmly against, because our job is to keep Canadians safe. That's what we did during this Emergencies Act. That's what we did during this pandemic. That's what we will continue to do.
Thank you.
You know, God bless the people who are having these conversations with the convoy crowd. If you've ever had to engage in those conversations, you know that, you know, it's not really meeting people halfway. It's like going down the rabbit hole really far. And even if you can convince them on like one tiny point, it's really difficult because they just have so many conspiracy theories in their back pocket. Too many of them have worms for brains, to put it lightly, salted. All right, let's see what Pierre had to say. He is obviously going to take a bit of a different tone here.
Bonjour tout le monde, merci d'être venu. Après 8 ans de
Zoom. Like it's like the cameraman was like testing the Zoom feature for the first time. My God, thank you so much, Lightly Salted. I really appreciate you that. I appreciate you, and I appreciate that you subscribed. Like, thank you so much. Second month in a row. That is amazing. I'm glad that you've stuck it around. I got past the first month, and you still like me after that time.
Après 8 ans.
Zoom.
De Justin Trudeau. Un sur
Zoom en français.
4 Canadiens manque des repas. Et 1 sur 2 coupent leurs épiceries parce qu'ils ne peuvent pas payer les factures.
Okay.
Père, non pas, mais parce qu'ils ont le prix des...
I've noticed he always starts in French these days. Zoomé. He is such a douche. Zoomé la douche.
Maison. On dans les 8 ans.
I should not speak French.
Que si vous avez pas une partie de la population contre une...
Oh my God, he's just going off.
Que cette
Wait, is there another? Do we get another Zoom?
Passer à une décision de et
This is
unificatrice,
the slow
on est
zoom.
passé à une décision de coincer, de diviser et de stigmatiser.
Why? Why do they need to be this close on his face? This is like what's that movie? You know, it's that Christmas movie with like Keira Knightley and like and it's like the best man of the wedding is like is in charge of the videography, and it turns out that the best man is also in love with the bride, and he's like he spent all of his time making the wedding video just like zoomed in on her face, and somehow she's not creeped out by all of this. It honestly just feels like that, like the cameraman is secretly in love with Justin or Pierre Poilivere here. Oh, hey, good morning, oi polloi. This is all Trudeau's fault is the English translation. Thank you. Someone probably is getting paid like thousands of dollars to translate this.
Craint que cette polarisation nécessaire, peine qu'il souffre, qu'on peut éviter avec d'autres gouvernements
Okay, we get it, Pierre. You're pandering towards the Quebec vote.
pour combattre au bon sens. Sure, you can't believe they never will.
Okay, we get, what, 8 minutes in here?
Of Justin Trudeau, au bon sens, chez nous. Thank you. After 8 years of Justin Trudeau, cost of housing has doubled. Cost of mortgage payments.
Wait, this is supposed to be about the Emergencies Act.
Rent and home prices have doubled, which means
They've doubled. How come he doesn't do the tripled for the doubled? You know, like I thought he's Canadian. That seems like a prime opportunity to appeal to the Canadian crowd and be like, Justin Trudeau has doubled rent.
9 out of 10 young people who don't own a home believe they never will. Think what that does to someone's psychology.
True, lightly salted. Yeah, you're right. This is like the whole inflation thing was post Emergencies Act. Yeah, this is not what the convoy was about.
You're 30 years old. You're in your parents'
You live in your mom's basement.
basement.
Oh my goodness. Does he live in his mom's basement? Why does he have like he's like incel core? You know?
You can't start a family.
Can't start a family? That's true. That is true. Because you can't get laid, bro. Because you live in your mom's basement.
You can't save for your future. You can't build credit or collateral.
You can't build credit? Why? Can't save for your future? Okay, maybe.
And worse, based on today's high interest rates and rising costs, you calculate that you never will.
I love how like his whole thing is just like insulting his base. You know, it's like, you're a piece of shit. You wake up in the morning, you don't have a job. You start drinking. You live in your mom's basement. You're not even good at video games. Like you don't have a girlfriend. You've never had a girlfriend, and you never will. You don't have money. You're like you don't wipe your own ass. Like what is this strategy? Yeah, it's the Jordan Peterson tactic. I know. It's like you insult people and people are like, yeah, that's me. That's me. Like imagine feeling compelled by this and being like, yeah, that's me.
So you lose hope. Worse, many homeowners.
You're hopeless. You're a piece of shit. Like anyone who gets like accepted into college or university gets credit card offers. Yeah, true. But you don't go to college. You don't go to university. You're not educated. You don't even have a grade 10. You're 39 years old. Don't have a high school education. You can't vote. Well, you can vote, but you don't vote because you don't believe in democracy. Like you're yeah, you bought gamer girl bathwater, you know? You're buying gamer girl urine online, getting delivered to your house. You're drinking it. You're getting sick. You know, you can't afford healthcare, which is free in Canada. I don't know. It's just ridiculous.
are losing their houses because interest rates are going up after 8 years of Justin Trudeau, despite the fact that his government said they would stay low for long.
They never said that. It just pissed me off so much. They're not in control of that.
So those people lose their homes, end on the street, and addicted to drugs. And after 8 years of Justin
You're living on the street, you're addicted to drugs.
Trudeau, 30,000 people have died of drug
Your
overdose.
mom's on the street as well. She's addicted to drugs. You're homeless, but you also live in your mom's basement somehow.
Doses. Crime rages as more and more violent acts go unpunished, with a 32%.
That's right. Yeah. Tired of people shaming us for our bathwater purchases.
Increase.
That's right. You did give $10 to Ko-Fi, so I'll send you some bathwater over right away.
In violent crime after 8 years of Justin Trudeau. Meanwhile, 1 in 4 Canadians skip meals, and 1 in 2 cut back on groceries because food prices have gone up so fast.
That's honestly so gross. You don't want that. Cons don't give a poop about our most vulnerable, yeah.
Under Justin Trudeau and his carbon tax. People are walking into food banks, asking help with medical assistance and dying. Not because they're sick, but because they're hungry and miserable after 8 years of Justin Trudeau.
Sorry.
Veterans who go
these
seek
are
help
actually
are told
real
by their own government they
issues.
should
It's
consider
just
getting
imagining him like telling his base that they're like miserable.
medical assistance and dying instead of getting the service they deserve. And finally, the government says that all those people suffering from mental health, understandably, with how badly things are going, the government says they should use medical assistance in dying. This is the hopeless state that Justin Trudeau has created. In Canada today,
I do think conservatives should get made.
after 8 years
I will assist them.
of Justin Trudeau, everything feels broken. But instead of fixing those things,
Consensually.
or at least taking responsibility for breaking them, the Prime Minister seeks to divide and distract. See, he thinks that if you're afraid of your neighbor, you'll forget that you can't pay your rent. If you're afraid of a trucker, you might forget that you're hungry and take your eyes off of the guy who caused the problem in the first place. Now, don't take my word for it. This is what a Liberal MP said when he commented on the Prime Minister's conduct. Stop dividing.
Yeah, wait, what was that? If you're a trucker, you might forget if you're hungry?
You can't pay your rent.
You can't pay your rent. You can't pay your rent to your mom and your dad, who are your landlords. And
Afraid of a trucker, you might forget
and if you're afraid of a trucker,
that you're hungry.
you might forget that you're
and
hungry.
take your eyes off of the guy who caused the problem in the first place.
What?
Now, don't take my word for it. This is what a Liberal MP said when he commented on the Prime Minister's conduct. Stop dividing Canadians. And I'm quoting, stop dividing Canadians. To stop pitting one part of the population against another. I can't help but notice, with regret, that both the tone and the policies of my government changed drastically on the eve of and during the last election, from a positive and unifying tone to a decision was made to wedge, to divide, and to stigmatize.
Okay, so this is when a Liberal MP was calling out Justin Trudeau for using vaccination as a wedge issue, which, congratulations on the one Liberal MP who stood up to Justin Trudeau. I actually really appreciate that. Not afraid of actual truckers. Most of them were vaccinated and didn't agree with the occupation. Yeah, like not over 90%, right?
I fear that this politicization of the pandemic risks undermining public trust in our public health institutions. This is not a risk that we should take lightly.
Okay, so it's just insane to think that Pierre Poilivere would not be someone who would drive a wedge or use something like vaccination for political gains.
Time to stop the division and the distraction. End quote. The Prime Minister's
End quote.
own Deputy Prime Minister, Chrystia Freeland, said that COVID was a political opportunity. And his former Finance Minister, Bill Morneau, says that the Prime Minister used vaccines as a wedge issue to divide people.
I do disagree that Justin Trudeau should not have done this. Sorry, I agree that Justin Trudeau should not have done this. But to think that Pierre Poilievre has not done this or politicized the pandemic in any way, you would have to be absolutely unhinged.
And thus, a lot of people were so helpless and so desperate, they ended up participating in a protest in Ottawa. This was an emergency that Justin Trudeau created by attacking his own population, by driving up their cost of living, by making it impossible for people to pay their bills and live their lives in peace. He caused.
Okay, so even the conservative opinion piece we read this morning was like Pierre Poilievre is a piece of shit for for taking this line of reasoning, like blaming Trudeau and saying that he intentionally did this and forced people into a situation where he had to invoke the Emergencies Act. It's pretty disingenuous.
Caused the emergency that unfolded. And then when he caused it, he piled on, he poured more gasoline on the fire with nasty insults, jabbing his finger in the faces of his own citizens.
See, this is why I would have doubled down. This is why I would have doubled down on the fringe minority thing. I would have been like, they are fringe. I wasn't wrong. They are a fringe minority. And, if you feel as though you want to be included in that fringe minority, then you're free to go and stand with the convoy and Pierre Poilievre.
Something that even today's report acknowledged contributed to the length and the intensity of the protest. Everything feels broken.
All he called them was fringe minority. Imagine being super insulted by something like that. This is not political name calling in any way.
Canada, but we can fix it. As Prime Minister, I'll bring people together. I'll listen to their concerns and understand the suffering that they experience.
No, you won't.
In fact, I'll reverse the policies that caused that suffering in the first place by eliminating.
I highly doubt that they will.
The carbon tax so that we can bring down heat, gas, and grocery bills, by clearing away the bureaucratic gatekeepers to build more homes so our young people have a place to live.
What a liar.
I'll get off the backs and out of the way of our First Nations people so that they can supply themselves with a good quality of life. In other words, instead of divide and conquer, we'll unite for hope in this country. It's common
Imagine buying into this
sense. Now let's bring it home. Thank you.
Let's bring it home. Bruh, there's not an election. There's nothing to bring home yet. You can't just bring it on home, fellas. It's years away. There are so many empty houses owned by investors. Why doesn't he mention that? Because he's a landlord.
I'll open the floor for questions. We have time for 5 questions.
Five
Terry Tate
questions.
From the Globe and Mail. I'm wondering if the story in today's Globe and Mail about China and the last election, whether that demonstrates the need for a foreign agent registry to track, monitor, influence.
What is this question? This question is a softball.
Of other countries.
First of all, with regards to the Globe story, it's clear that Justin Trudeau has been covering up the interference of the authoritarian regime in Beijing.
That's not what the CSIS report said.
He claims he never knew anything about it. But is it really believable? Is it really believable that our foreign intel, is it really believable that CSIS would write an entire report and share it with foreign governments without actually telling our own Prime Minister? Is it really believable that the many reports that have been written over the last 4 years about this, that have now come to light in newspapers because they've been leaked by courageous whistleblowers inside our intelligence apparatus, never were brought before the Prime Minister of Canada? Of course.
Okay, so think about what would have happened, right? If CSIS did tell Justin Trudeau before the election that there was potentially interference from China. But if Justin Trudeau had come out during the election and said that China is interfering with our election, how do you think that actually would have looked? Or what would have been the actual consequences of that happening? It probably would have actually made the interference worse. It would have changed the tone of the election. It would have actually been more devastating than actually doing nothing and allowing it to be investigated, right? How do you draw the conclusion before the election has already come to a conclusion, right? So it's like it just really doesn't make sense. Like it's a really easy way, I think, for Pierre Poilievre to like get a one up on Justin Trudeau. But if you're actually to put yourself in Justin Trudeau's shoes, or what would anybody, if they were the prime minister, what would Pierre Poilievre do if he was prime minister during that moment and it was like, hey, China's interfering with the election and we're keeping an eye on it? What would you do? Would you start being like, China's interfering with the election and telling everyone and like distracting from what your campaign is about? You probably wouldn't. So it's pretty ridiculous. How do we know Chinese government wasn't advocating for more? Well, they were. They were advocating for 2 conservatives and like seven liberals. The CSIS report said 2 of the MPs, were CPC. Now the cons love whistleblowers. That's right. Obama interfered in the Canadian election. Is it like that interference? Right. And we know that like Republicans were involved with the convoy and the funding of the convoy. So that should be also a red flag for someone like Pierre.
Of course, that is not believable. Justin Trudeau knew about this interference, and he covered it up because he benefited from it. He is perfectly happy to let a foreign authoritarian government interfere in our elections as long as they're helping him.
So, I mean, the CSIS report concluded that it didn't affect the outcome of the election, like that there was interference, but it didn't affect the outcome of the election.
And according to the Globe and Mail story today, this foreign authoritarian government wanted to see Justin Trudeau as prime minister because they knew that he would work for their interests rather than Canada's interest. And that's why he's covered up this information for so long.
The idea that Justin Trudeau is like a communist agent from China is like insane.
As to your specific question, I believe we need a public registry of all those who do paid work on behalf of foreign authoritarian regimes to influence or manipulate our politics or government.
Okay, so this actually is not a bad idea. We should have this, but it's not Justin Trudeau's fault.
Thank you.
Hi there, Josh McLean, CBC News. And if you don't mind responding in English.
Sorry, I didn't hear that. If you want me to write it in French?
In English and French, please.
English, sure.
Justice Rouleau said that he did not accept the organizers' descriptions of the protest as lawful, calm, peaceful, or something resembling a celebration. He wrote that the bigger picture reveals the situation in Ottawa was unsafe and chaotic. Justice Rouleau also found that the federal government's use of the Emergencies Act was justified. Do you accept Justice Rouleau's findings, and do you regret endorsing the Freedom Convoy?
Oh, I was so confused about what he was saying. I thought he was trying to say Justin Trudeau, but he was saying Justice Rouleau, which is very confusing. So, okay.
Well, first of all, your question was typical of CBC, bias again. You forgot to mention what the report said, which is more of an effort should have been made by government leaders at all levels during the protest to acknowledge that the majority of protesters were exercising their fundamental democratic rights.
Okay, so immediately here he is like condemning CBC because he feels as though he's in the middle of this like beef with the CBC because he wants to defund them and CBC said, "Hey, please don't defund us." So petty, very like Trump-esque vibes here.
What I said before, during, and after the protest was that I condemn anyone who behaves badly, breaks laws, or blockades critical infrastructure, while standing on the side of the hardworking people who have suffered so much under 8 years of Justin Trudeau and were desperately trying to have their voices heard against an insulting and divisive prime minister. And the only reason that we had this emergency is because Justin Trudeau wanted it to happen. Because
wait, what happened? I didn't hear about that. Is it the guy who died?
He wanted to distract and divide Canadians from the pain and suffering that he has caused by driving up their cost of living, making it impossible for our youth to own homes, by taxing our working class, and by imposing unnecessary and unscientific rules that brought an end to the livelihoods of countless heroes we needed for our economy. Thank you.
Truckers, the real heroes. Unvaccinated truckers, the real heroes.
Encore, in
Okay,
behalf, I think not a political campaign on her behalf. I think orders coming to carry on, and so I can expect say this in English as well. I know that the president of CBC has launched a campaign against me, and so I can expect that there are going to be a lot of reporters coming to carry out that campaign on her behalf. I think the CBC
Jesus, he thinks it's like a war. Like the president of the CBC has control over all the reporters.
should act as an unbiased source of news, not a political campaign machine for the Prime Minister. Donc, la question est biaisée.
The thing is, he, like, in the first question from the Globe and Mail, he was praising their reporting about CSIS and China and Justin Trudeau. And now he got the question from CBC, and he's like, "Wow, the media is the enemy." So to this idea that if Pierre Poilivere was prime minister, that he wouldn't use the mainstream media to his benefit is like completely ludicrous.
Le journaliste a manqué à ce que cela leur a pu faire davantage. Nous condamnons tous qui ont brisé des lois, de les stigmatiser et reconnaître le passé.
Brody Thomas, Post Media. The federal government today announced its interim sustainable jobs plan, previously known as the Just Transition. I'm wondering if you have any thoughts on the plan as presented and how a conservative government might approach this differently.
Well, I can tell you, Vladimir Putin is smiling today because as Justin Trudeau drives energy jobs out of Canada, he drives money into the hands of foreign polluting dictatorships. We know because Trudeau has killed most of the LNG projects that were on his desk when he took office. The Europeans have to rely on Putin.
Have you ever seen Putin smile? I don't think I ever have.
To heat their homes and feed their industry with gas that we could be supplying cleaner, more ethically, and to the benefit of our First Nations people right here in Canada. Justin Trudeau's approach is hurting our environment by driving jobs, business, and opportunity out and global pollution up. The answer is to develop our resources here in Canada while incentivizing our companies to do so with the lowest possible emissions. That will bring greenhouse gases down and opportunities and jobs up. In other words, this is common sense. It's time to bring home our jobs, bring home our businesses, and bring home our resource development. Let's bring it home.
I mean, like, people aren't having problems getting jobs in Canada.
Hello, Mr. Poilivere. Jonathan Bradley, Western Standard.
The cons were opposing 10 years ago. I guess they switched their tune, huh? Trudeau bought a pipeline. The Conservatives did not. Yeah, like this idea that Trudeau is like a savior of the environment or like some social justice warrior who's trying to stop pipelines or something is like really, really stupid. I mean, like we're already like trying to do a green transition. And I hate kind of like arguing about this because like it's still just like life under capitalism. It's just like green capitalism. And then like Pierre Poilivere is just like wants to be old school and appeal to like the Alberta oil sand workers or something. I don't know.
My question for you is, given the release of the Public Order Emergency Commission's report and rising Western alienation, it's clear there is divisions among Canadians. What role has Prime Minister Justin Trudeau played in this division, and how can it be resolved?
He hasn't played a
What
role.
are these questions? These questions are like really weird. They like kind of like set him up to give like a criticism of Justin Trudeau, you know? I wish they would set him up to like make him answer something that he has to be accountable for. He's in power too, you know? Like so annoying. Trudeau barely acknowledged land back defenders. Yeah. These are his friends asking him to play his greatest hits. Yeah, that it really feels like that. Some of the reasons the pipelines were not approved was because the government failed to consult First Nations. Oh, but have you considered that maybe some First Nations people are also capitalists and they want to benefit from the exploitation of the land? And maybe they're conservatives too.
He is the division. His purpose is to divide and conquer. He believes that if he can turn Canadians against each other, then they'll forget how miserable life has become after 8 years of his tax hikes, inflation, and out-of-control cost of living. With costs, crime, and corruption raging after 8 years of Justin Trudeau, it's no wonder he wants to focus off him, and he wants Canadians fighting with each other. So you can expect him to continue to divide people by race, region, vaccine status, and any other fault line that he can invent. But instead of divide and distract, what we need to do is unite for hope, to bring people together.
Imagine this. Is he gonna go with this "Unite for Hope"? Is that gonna be his election slogan? Because that'll be honestly, it's just so
that
hilarious.
tomorrow can be better than today. Let's just remove all these painful taxes that have driven people into poverty. Let's end the inflationary deficits that send the cost of living up faster than at any time in 40 years. Let's clear the bureaucratic blockades to build millions of new homes
It's basically like an Obama, like yes, we can.
so our young people can actually have a roof over their head and not just live in their parents' basements. And let's bring back freedom of speech and freedom of expression so everybody can have a voice again in this big, beautiful, wonderful country of ours. Let's unite our people for hope, and let's bring it home. Thank you.
And let's bring it home. Okay, those are the new slogans. Unite for Hope and bring it home. Okay, which is basically just Canada first rhetoric.